So for step 3, attaching the counter gear, well, you can see we need to grab A1, so one side of the gearbox. We've got 2 bearings, and then we've got the counter gear and the shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and grease all this. Now I'm not going to grease the shaft because we're going to be using the ball bearings, but I'll certainly be greasing the counter gear. So there are the pieces we need. There's the 2 bearings, there's our shaft, and then the gearbox, and of course our counter gear. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So first off, let's get the bearings into this gear. So you can see that there's one down there, which mostly goes in. I might try using one of my tools here to push it in all the way. Yep, it's all the way down there. And then we'll take this other one and we'll pop it into there. So there's our 2 bearings in place. And now it's going to be a matter of greasing this up and then sliding the shaft through. So maybe what I'll do is I'll put the shaft in now. Yeah, that'll be easier to hold. And then we'll grease this up. And again, it's kind of interesting. I just don't, with the Hot Shot, the Hornet Evo, they provided a much bigger tube of grease. And with this kit, there's not that, this tube is very small, but we're gonna make do because we've got lots of different gears that we need to grease up going forward. So I'm just going to make sure that there's enough on this, and we've got the other gears to grease up anyway, so that's going to blend in with these. So I'm not going to do too much more than what you see there. They're mostly covered all the way around, so I think that's good enough. So now we're going to take this. You can see where the shaft has got to go into there, just like that. And there is our counter gear. So it's a fairly simple step, but we're all set to go, which means that step 3 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 4 and work on the gearbox. So now we're going to bring back the differential, add a couple of bearings, and screw this whole thing together. So for step 4, the gearbox, well, we're going to grab the gearbox part that we just finished building. We're going to put in the differential gear. We've got a couple of bearings, and then of course the other side. Now the one difference here, we're adding this F7 piece, which is specific to the fighter Nxgen. So that's kind of interesting to see this little change here. So we'll see how this goes. So there is the hardware we need, the 2 MA2, MA4s, and our 1150 bearings. So I'll set this up and we'll put the gearbox together. So first off, let's get the bearings in place. So you can see that there's one that's going to fit on the other side of this housing. So we're going to put that in there just like that. And on this one, from the inside, we're going to put that bearing right there, just like that. And then of course we've got our differential gear, and the 2 pieces are going to fit together, and then that's going to be attached on the outside. Now, I tend to build this exactly as shown because sometimes it does make a difference. Notice that there are screws facing out, so you want this going into the gear case that way. So what I'm going to do is we're going to grease this up as they show. And I mean, I am going to be trying to do this as lightly as possible because it will, you know, this grease is going to go on that counter gear grease that we basically, you know, the gear that we put together already and put into the other half of the gearbox. So I'm not going to go too crazy, but you see how I can already find that this tube is going to disappear. Like, I'm already running out. And I'm not putting on a tremendous amount of grease, but it's still going to be running out. But let's see how this goes. So we need to put that there. Once we get it seated right. There we go. There we go. So there is our differential. And then this is going to sit on top of that. And of course the shaft is going to go into that hole right there. So that's going to sit over top just like that. So to start this off with, I can see that we've got the two MA4 screws that are going to go here and here. So let's get those ones started. And I can already tell. See, the proper screwdriver would be this one, the larger JIS head. But because of the way that this gearbox is shaped, there's not a lot of room. So I'm going to have to use the smaller screwdriver, which isn't a perfect fit, but we're going to have to do that anyway. It just means that in order for the head to stay in the screw, you're going to have to put a little bit more pressure on the head, otherwise it's going to come out. Just make sure that you've got it in the head. And hopefully this will hold. Yeah, that's just not going to work. Now, I haven't done it completely. They're still there, but they're not all the way in, because what I want to see is how this is going to fit. Because you can see that the way this is shaped, this is going to sit there and there on either side of the gearbox. So that sits on either side. And these ones are the MA2 screws, which are the longer ones, and they're going to fit in just like this. And we'll switch this over again. And again, I'm not going to do it all the way until I've got this one in place. There we go. That's pretty firm. Yep. I'll do it one more on this side. Good. So that's in place. Interesting. So now we're back to this. And again, this is the weird thing. This is the proper screwdriver. Whoop. This is the proper screwdriver right here. This is a smaller one designed for the smaller head screws. But notice I can't get the screwdriver into that hole very easily. It doesn't, you can see that you can get it in, but you can't turn it. And the same problem is there. I can't get the screwdriver into the hole. So I'm going to have to use this smaller one to try and finish it off. But you're going to have to put a fair bit of pressure on the screw head. Otherwise, it's just going to slip out. Okay, that is in. So now it's just a matter of getting this one in, which again, I've got to push hard to make sure that it doesn't slip out. And there we go. So it's in, but this one is going to be a touch awkward because you're using the wrong screwdriver if you're using the Tamiya screwdriver set. You just don't have a choice. This won't work. But there we go. There is our gearbox built, and this is the one thing that makes it quite different, because we're already making it look like the Fighter Nxgen, because that's a piece that's not in any of the other kits. Very cool. So that means that step 4 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 5 and start working on the motor.